Really great to see you both. And again, appreciate your time today, knowing how busy that you both are. It would be great if you could, Joanne, maybe you could lead us off with a little bit of a background on how data-driven optimization, we're diving straight into this, of pharmaceuticals and the supply chain around pharmaceuticals and medication adherence for this is something that is helping improve the affordability and the accessibility of medications for patients around the country.
Thank you, Stan. Pardon me, I have allergies. Apparently, I have decided to come for a visit. So sorry about that.
No worries.
So that's a lot. Being Canadian, that's a lot of A's when we talk about accessibility, affordability, and accessibility, right? So with regard to data and medication adherence, obviously when it comes to availability, and Randy can help in with this as well, with related to supply chain. So when we look at accessibility, why is it less accessible perhaps today than, let's say, a year ago? It could be possibly related to some waste, excessive waste. Our company's been in clinical trials and drug development for the last 20 years, and those are hot topics that everyone discusses and continue to discuss, is the waste that goes on in drug development processes. And obviously the same in the academic, in the consumer world, where waste is there. So if we can make less waste, maybe it will be more accessible to have patients with medications in their hands, right? Affordability, it's basically around the same idea, right? So when we talk about affordability, if we reduce waste, we reduce the cost. And one of the biggest costs to healthcare globally, worldwide, is medication non-adherence or non-compliance to treatment, right? So if we can help patients engage, that's even better. And then feed that supply chain, et cetera, et cetera. When we talk accessibility, again, how can we keep patients? Well, actually, we have to get patients, right? We get a patient. How are we going to make medication accessible to them? And then how, again, are we going to keep them on track taking their medicine? So that's basically covers that. When you talk about, creating data at the speed of light, when you can do data with digital tools and in real time, that's where that elevates the speed of light for data exchange between a patient and a care team. So that's sort of how I see it.
That's fantastic. And that is a really good insight for the audience. And again, if you have questions or anything like that, please do message us either in the chat box here or connect me up with me on LinkedIn to do that, a little bit more conversation on the side. But, Randy, following up on that, obviously, there's a number of challenges that the medication supply chain is facing, particularly executives in your role in hospital systems. What kind of challenges are you seeing when you're, helping run some of some of the biggest supplies in a private hospital system on medication flow, and how you're seeing these challenges impact medication adherence?
Stan, thank you. Such a great question, and one in and of itself that we could have an entire panel on. So I'll try to keep my commentary in a more summary manner. And my expertise is more, as Joanne hit on, the availability of it. So I'll term it as like maybe 4 primary challenges and like 3 secondary, for lack of better terms. I think the first, and Joanne touched on it, it's a balance of inventory management. With pharmacies that are trying to, whether it's experiencing stockouts or overstocking, both have critical effects on how we forecast for demand, variability in prescription rates. But in essence, if we understock or if we overstock, it drives towards challenges with medication adherence. Simply put, stockouts, medication's not available. Overstock, you create excess or you create waste that then financially, as I'm sure everyone can imagine, these drugs, for the most part, are not fundamentally very, very cheap, and hospitals operate at a very, very slim margin. So any sort of waste in the system just detracts from the ability for hospitals to just buy more supplies so patients can adhere to what they need for their medical care. I think with that, Stan, it's worth acknowledging fundamentally, we all know, but again, key to medication adherence, that this industry is highly regulated. international, national, regional jurisdictions, excessive documentations, audits, you have the good manufacturing practices, the good distribution practices, all of which, if there's any wrinkle in any one of these processes, it creates disruptions. Disruptions in the forms of recalls, disruptions in the form of delayed shipments, disruptions that at the end of the day lead to the patients not receiving what they need for their treatment. Relatedly, and again, I would say we've made a lot of advancements in what I'm describing, but not at the speed of light that we need to. A third and fourth, the third would be cold chain management. I think everyone's aware that a lot of medication requires very specific criteria when it comes to shipment preparation. And again, we've made significant advancements in the packaging space, but there still are gaps and there's still opportunities where supply chain managers worry about the fundamentals. Drugs come in. Have they been maintained at the regular at the appropriate temperature levels? And some drugs have very, very, very narrow windows of temperature requirements. So in essence, again, drug comes in not at the right layer of integrity. It just affects the availability of the drug. And then I think last, I'll hit on this more, it's the end-to-end just supply chain visibility and data integration. In the United States, there's so many players that are involved in the production, the distribution, and the availability of drugs. It's not as though we have this ecosystem where everyone talks or we have systems that integrate clearly with one another so we have real-time information. And in the end, again, it's as a hospital leader, it's very simple. Drugs come in or medications come in, we provide them to our patients so they can receive their treatment. But not having the right data and having it visible in real time gets back to what Joanne referenced. It produces inventory management challenges. And then I'll just end by saying, we still continue to notice trends with counterfeit drugs. Supply chains remain global, so any sort of geopolitical conflict can escalate challenges with adherence very, very quickly. And lastly, in this era, cybersecurity is of the utmost importance. And we notice more and more that health organizations, hospitals, pharmaceutical organizations, prescription benefit managers become targets of these attacks, which all just take away from the fundamental of medications not being readily available for patients. So, Stan, I know I rattled off a lot. I'll stop there, and I'm sure Joanne will connect some of the dots more and more.
I was trying to hold back and not jump in.
Oh, thank you, Joanne. I appreciate that.
Okay, so Joanne, no pressure. You've got to connect all the dots there. But no, let's really focus. I do want to really hone in on the comments that he was talking about for medication technologies and just and emerging technologies, Joanne, that you're seeing to improve medication adherence, because we know that 99% of healthcare issues, or 90%, some extraordinary number, are behaviorally related. And so if you could talk about some of the technologies that you're seeing coming up that you think could help with patient behavior and improve medication adherence.
Yeah, thanks. So Randy, on the really excellent bang on identifying of all the issues, or many of the issues in the supply chain, right? So you touched a lot of points that, in my experience over these last 18 years working in smart technology and digital health solutions for adherence tracking and drug tracking and traceability, this is where it may, Matt previously in the previous workshop was talking about the whole of the care delivery system, right? So if changing medications, titration, that sort of thing, it's probably or could be related to a patient not being treatment compliant, right? So they're going to up the drug dose, they're going to change the brand of the drug, all of this, right? So when we talk about making that supply chain smarter, when you can use something with printed sensors and smart technology built in packaging, such as a pill bottle or a blister card or an injectable, whatever it could be, that point of packaging from the manufacturer actually solves a lot of those supply chain little hiccups, right? And that end up being money related hiccups. So the first off, when you talk about diversion of the drug, the integrity of the product, the stability of the product, technology can detect all of that throughout the entire chain of custody. So the moment that drugs are packaged, all the way through when they come in through your network, and when they're handed out to patients, from the moment that patient takes their drug, all of that data throughout the continuum of care is immediately available, right? So this is where the telemedicine and the digital health is really strengthening supply chains and helping to keep patients actually on their treatment and improve their health in the end. And I think that's where visibility in these types of technologies can actually really elevate success of the patient. The other comments related to artificial intelligence is a big one, right? So, but artificial intelligence, you need better data and reliable data in order to strengthen those algorithms to feed into your supply chain. So all of that is impacted, and even with wearables, right? So you can talk about wearables, the wearable data. Why is it reading this way? Perhaps it's related because patients aren't following treatment. So lots of really cool technologies are available. And, you know, as Randy mentions, there's a lot of stakeholders involved along the way. So it's going to take, you know, a lot of collaboration and partnerships to do this sort of thing for the betterment of health and to speed up that data to the speed of light.
That's amazing. No, just a phenomenal piece of background there, and then we'll wind it up again. Randy, if you could just talk a little bit about, you know, some of the similar kind of themes and some of the similar kind of efforts. And you know, I think when we talk about supply chain and what's happening with you know, on the hospital side, the health system side, the provider side, you know, just collaborating to implement these kinds of personalized medication adherence interventions is a task in and of itself. Talk a little bit about how supply chain directors and leaders in the provider side of things can do that and can collaborate and help implement that kind of personalized system and you know, with you know, kind of patient specific preferences and data.
Yeah, Stan, it's such a great question, and it's one now more than ever that we certainly need to get right. And I think part of the challenge, before I get into maybe solutions and the path forward, is just hospitals have so many diverging priorities. So I think the first answer to your question is it starts really at the executive level and the buy-in to the value of, or the investment, I would say, into a supply chain and why we need to get this correct. To Joanne's point, there is so, and to my comment earlier about the technology is already, in a way, we've made so many strides over the past few years. A lot of the great technology already exists. It's already out there in some capacity. Is it at the scale where it will be in 5 years? No. So I think the first stand is the vision of executive leaders to buy in at the pharmacy level, at the implant level, the value in driving technology as an enabler to accomplish or alleviate some of the challenges I referenced. So part of that could be, you know, how Joanne's point, collecting data in our EHR, in mobile apps, in our pharmacy records. And then possibly now, because that's just if assuming you have the right data, that's a ton, for a lack of better terms, of data, utilizing like artificial intelligence in the future state to help analyze, interpret, and in a way prescribe, no pun intended, or predict where, from a supply chain perspective, like what inventory levels we need to manage, tracking at the level of transportation and using like sensor technology to know where drugs exactly are. I think that's one fragment of as a supply chain leader. As the second stand, get to your point, as supply chain leaders now, and maybe I'll wrap up with this comment, we are becoming more obsessed with not just advanced analytics, but predictive analytics so we can deliver personalized care. And I think, again, it comes back to viewing, easier said than done, viewing this work as an ecosystem where every partner has to play. I know that's speaking in general terms, and it sounds great conceptually, but now more than ever, I remain optimistic as a supply chain leader that our communications with manufacturers, with regulators, and we need folks like Joanne and her organization to provide the technology, because candidly, hospitals are not directly in the business of innovating. We want to be innovative in what we provide to patients, but we need partners along the way. So, Sam, I'll summarize it as buy-in at the top level, gathering and analyzing data with, again, I want to keep this theme of utilizing artificial intelligence, because heck, it's impressive what's being done in this day and age, and we'll just get better and better or faster and faster. And then just the reality of we have to kind of work together and understand the value of every partner in the ecosystem.
That's fantastic. That's a great way to end it. Thank you both for such an informative panel, and appreciate your time. I know you're both very busy, and we're getting you out at 12:30 on the dot Eastern. So good luck in your next meetings, guys. Thank you again.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you.